Bandwidth for First Updates Now is supported by the Blue Alliance. Keep up to date on all live and archived First Robotics events and team stats at thebluealliance.com. First Updates Now is brought to you by Twitch. Fun is now a Twitch partner and offering some awesome subscriber-only benefits. Subscribe today or get a free subscription each month when you have Amazon Prime by linking your account and clicking subscribe.
All right, welcome to FUNalysis. We're here to break down some of the greatest and most relevant matches in FRC history. My name is Mason Markee. And joining me today, I've got two amazing guests with you. I want you guys to meet them. First, we've got the amazing, the fantastic Karthik Kanagasabapathy. Karthik, say hello.
Hey, everyone. Should be a good show.
I hope it's a good show. I really do. And also joining me is Mr. Nick Lawrence.
Hey, everybody.
So, last time, we showed some of the best matches of 2017. We really showed how that strategy of that game could go in a lot of different ways and how exciting it could be and how many hard decisions you have to make. Since we're all so tired of first Steamworks and we're so excited to get to the new 2018 game, we're actually going to go back in time, show you some of our favorite matches from old school. So we've dug up some great things from the Blue Alliance vault. These are some really historic matches. Maybe one of them isn't the most competitive match you've ever seen, but I think we're going to have a lot of fun with it. We really want to bring to you guys the strategy of these different games. And so we're going to have to go over the rules a little bit. We know not all of you were playing these games back in the day. You're not all old folks like us. But we want to make sure to field any questions you have. So maybe questions about the game, maybe questions about some of the analysis we're doing, maybe something associated with the strategy that you have to that's always been on your mind. We're here to answer them. We want to get the commentators involved in this. We've also got an awesome giveaway coming up from New Legacy Team 323 Lights Out of Mountain Home, Arkansas. Let's bring on our producer, Tyler, to tell us more about this giveaway.
Hey, thanks, Mason, for bringing me on here. Yeah, absolutely. We're very excited. 323 Lights Out, guys. If you're not familiar with them, get to know them because they're going to be a huge team coming up in future years here. They've been gracious enough to donate one of these t-shirts we have up on screen. So if you're interested in winning it, all you got to do is give us a follow, or for a few bucks a month, you can subscribe for us for 5 times chance to win, or for free through Amazon Prime, or Twitch Prime, sorry. And then near the end of the show, we're going to be asking you to put in a keyword, and you'll have a chance to win the shirt. So all you got to do is stick around, get ready for that keyword, and make sure you're logged in the chat. And by the way, if you're watching with the group, get everybody logged in the chat so you can have more chances to win.
All right, that's some good advice there. So without delay, we're going to get right into the action, into the good stuff. Nick, are you ready to go?
Heck yeah, I am.
All right, why don't you take it away, brother?
All right, so the first match we're going to watch tonight and break down is qualification match number 139 from the Newton division way back in 2011. 2011, the game was Locomotion. The basic object of the game was an autonomous score a yellow inflatable Uber tube onto the rack for some bonus points. And then basically the whole object of the game for most of teleop was to try to create logos on a rack in front of your face out of different shaped triangle, circle, square inflatable tubes. And at the end of the game, you had to deploy a small, sometimes very expensive mini bot onto a pole to try to beat the other 3 mini bots up poles. The match that I'm picking, I'm a little bit biased about because I was driving in this match, but there's some interesting strategies that happened in qualification match number 39.
I thought that guy behind the glass looked familiar.
So it's the end of the qualification tournament. The Newton division that year was fairly deep, but the rankings were mostly solidified at this point. So a lot of this match is about setting yourself up to go play in the playoffs and trying to make a show to get picked. On blue, we had 1732. That was the Hilltoppers. They were ranked 5 at both the regional events, but they spent most of the year as a tube scorer, but they don't play that way in this match, and I'll get back to that in a second. They had 2809 as well. It's K-Botics from Canada. They were finalists at New York City. They eventually have gone and merged with, I believe, 3710 to create a new team. So if you look up 2809, their history stops like 2015, 2016 or so. And then finally, you have 353, that's Pobots. They played at Long Island Regional that year. And on the Red Alliance, you had 2481, the Roboteers, before they'd ever won a regional, before they got famous, which we're going to talk a lot more about them later in this show. They had a quarterfinals performance that year at Wisconsin. But again, they hadn't won a regional yet, so they weren't quite first famous. And they also had 3242, the Illumicats, who got to the championship in 2011 on a chairman's award. And finally, the team that I was fortunate enough to drive for was 1503 Spartonics, where we'd won 2 regionals with no floor pickup at all, so we couldn't retrieve tubes from the ground. We spent our entire season going back and forth to the human player station and a middle-of-the-pack minibot. So on blue, all these robots were ranked mid to lower in the rankings. None of them were going to be in a picking position at all, but they all were trying to put on a good show to try to make a name for themselves late in the qualification tournament to get picked. As I said, 1732 is a decent tube scorer, and so is 2809 K-Botics. If you left them alone, they could put up 5 or 6 tubes if you left them alone, but they kind of succumbed to some defense. All 3 of these blue robots had a consistent single tube auto, so it was likely that all 3 of these Aver tubes were going to get on the rack. When we were analyzing this match, we really thought that K-Botics and Hilltoppers were going to be doing the heavy lifting, and that 353 was going to come try to play some positional defense on us. As for red, 1503 was ranked mid-20s, again, not going to be in a picking position, had a kind of tough schedule. So we really, again, we were looking to have a good performance as well to, again, try to make a name for ourselves. We were a little bit concerned because we had some tough matches where we didn't put up a lot of tubes, and our minibot was not nearly the fastest in the division. 2481, however, had one of the fastest minibots in the Newton division that year, but they kind of struggled with their teleop tube game, even though they had a pretty good auto. The thing with them is they needed to make sure they got to the pole early. So they said when we were doing match planning that they were going to head to the pole with like 25, 30 seconds left to go, so that would take them out of the tube scoring game a little early in the match. And finally, 3242 didn't have an UberTube auto, and we needed to match them on the rack, meaning we had to find a way to get 3 tubes onto the 3 UberTubes on the rack. 2481 did not have a 2-tube auto, but the robot that couldn't pick up tubes off the floor did. We found a way to make the 1503 robot pick up a second tube and auto, and unfortunately this video doesn't show it, but we'll see 1503 will be set up for the 2-tube auto. We'll see if it's successful.
You just have to believe us that it was amazing, right?
Chat me later. I can find you a link to it. Actually works. You blink and you miss the tube going into the claw. It's crazy. But we'll have to see if it works in this match. So we can go ahead and go to the replay screen here. You'll see that 2481 at the very beginning it's set up for a single tube, and there's a tube on the ground in front of the 3242 machine, and 1503 is already midway through scoring. So we can start rolling the match. It'll take a second to get going. Once it just calms down, we'll see that 1503 gets there first, and Roboteers get there first. The camera cuts away. Blue has all 3 of the Robotubes, and then, oh, wait a minute, 1503, you want to pause for a second there and go back to where 1503 has got their 3rd tube, and they score it successfully. So now we're all tied up on the rack at the end of Autonomous. So we'll keep going here through the match, through teleop. And we'll see that 1503 will begin their methodical run. You'll see them charge down in the loading lane. And to our surprise, if you want to pause here and go back for a second and rewind maybe to about 114 seconds, 115, you'll see that 1732 isn't going after tubes. You can see a red bumper there. I'm not sure if that's Roboteers or if that's 3242, but the Hilltoppers are immediately going to play defense. That's not something we expected to see. We really thought that Hilltoppers and K-Botics were going to handle the rack, and 353 was going to play some defense. So you'll see 1732 goes and pushes that red robot out of the way, and we can keep rolling here to let the match play.
And just to jump in on what Nick was saying there, defensive strategies in the midfield that year were neither common nor usually effective, although there were a few teams that could really bring it. For the most part, this was a wide open offensive game.
Mm-hmm.
And Hilltoppers were a really good robot that year. We played with them at Midwest, and they were not a robot that was delegated to defense very often.
Right,
yeah,
which is why. Go ahead.
sorry, where defense would come into play in this game was at the end game, blocking people from getting to the pole. But the tube scoring, the first, minute and a half of a match was very just back and forth, wide open, especially because you have these two giant protected zones. I don't know if Nick mentioned it at the beginning of the match, but past those yellow lines in the scoring zones is completely protected for offense.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. One thing that will get complicated here that we're going to deal with that chat mentioned is that this is before the golden age of automatic super magical live scoring. So the score will kind of look kind of jumpy and weird here, which will prove to be complicated for the Red Alliance later in this match. So we can go ahead and keep rolling here. And the interesting thing is, hopefully the camera will switch here. So 1503 doesn't get defended for their first two, but you see 1732 begins to shadow them. The camera's going to switch back, and Hilltoppers, right smartly there, they start playing defense on 1503, and they're playing a ping pong style defense. If you want to go back to that, you'll see that the Hilltoppers, they don't quite get to blocking 1503, but they are able to T-bone them for a second. And the Hilltoppers' entire strategy here is to slow 1503 down, knowing that the 1503 was going to be the primary tube scorer. The way to beat Spartonics was to slow their cycles down to prevent them from getting two logos. So we'll keep going here. We'll see that 1503 will escape the grasp of 1732. And basically, the Hilltoppers are really just sort of kind of getting in the way while they wait for 1503. It's going to slip back here. We'll pause for a second, back at 86 seconds. It's going to be kind of tough. There's only a single frame. Hey, you got it. That's perfect. You'll see the Hilltoppers, they switch a little bit here. They were playing get in the way defense. Right here, they're playing full man-to-man. We're going to hold 1503 defense here. They're going to hold them and pin them as long as we can against that blue mini-bot tower. Again, a different way that Hilltoppers are going all out on the defense here. They're using everything they can to slow 1503 down to try to prevent them from scoring tubes.
Yeah, and it's interesting how they're trying to play defense on 1503 here. So in 2011, 11-14 went to two events with 1503, so we knew them well, and we ended up pairing up with 1503 to win both those events. However, you always talk strategies. What are we going to do in case we have to play these guys? And manning up and playing defense the way that the Hilltoppers are right now is not what we would have done at all. We would have tried to cut off the lane access to the loading zone because 1503 had to go back and forth through that zone. And so just to have someone slow down their cycles a bit to cut them down from 6 to maybe 4 tubes would have been the game that we would have played. So it's interesting here. And full disclosure, I did not watch this match beforehand, so I'm curious to see how this plays out.
Right, and one other thing to mention about this game is that the human players could throw the tubes. In fact, in this frame, you see a white and red tube flying through the air. Those are being thrown across the field. But 1503 was a unique robot that year because they didn't have a ground pickup. They had to go all the way back to the human loader station every single time, which was rare, but they were extremely effective doing that.
Right, and one of the dangerous things about switching gears back to defense here, one of the dangerous things about playing defense here is you're very close to that red line that spans the front plane of those loading lane dividers. The yellow line was a caution line, but the red line, if you touched a robot that was in their own scoring zone, I forget the proper vernacular for it, that was an automatic DQ for you. So you really are kind of playing with fire by playing defense right in front of the rack. So we can keep rolling here, and we'll see that the Hilltoppers, they pin 1503 for a bit, and then they eventually let him go to try not to draw a penalty on themselves. And right here, we'll see that the Blue Alliance completes their first logo, and we'll be able to keep rolling with this one here. It's going to switch back here. 1503 gets their tube, and it kind of doesn't show up very well, but if we can rewind back to about 74, 75 seconds here, the Hilltoppers do something really smart, and 1503 does something kind of dumb. One of the protected zones as well, in addition to that scoring zone in front of your rack, was the loading lanes. You could not drive through your opponent's loading lanes, which were right beside your scoring rack. Every time you did it, it was a 3-point reduction on your score. Back then, penalties were a decrease on your own score. And we'll see that 1732 takes advantage of the situation, and they push 1503 just barely across the tape line, and they draw a 3-point penalty out of 1503 here as 1503 tries to go back and gets another tube. And unfortunately, the camera cuts away, so you don't see the ref pull the flag, but I remember seeing that out of the corner of my eye and being a little bit frustrated about that.
I want to interrupt you here for 1 second, Nick.
Sure.
One thing, I just hope the first never goes back to inflatable game pieces, because you just look at the difference in diameter and thickness on some of these things. Like that one red tube there, it looks like it had like 3 extra portions at Thanksgiving dinner. And then, like, some of these other ones are so thin, and like you have to make your claw be able to pick all of these up. Like I remember before a match, we would tell our human player, it's like, hey, go grab all the tubes and like let some air out of them and get them to be the same size, like, because you'd have like fat ones and skinny ones. Yeah. Oh, it was absolutely Deflategate.
Right. Yeah. The tube difficulty was definitely a thing a lot of teams struggled with. So moving on, we're going to keep rolling here with this match. At this point, Blue has completed their first logo. They're 1 full tube ahead, and 1503 is behind on a cycle. We'll see the Roboteers go on, and they try to place a square here, which is not the tube we need right away. Meanwhile, 1503 comes back in, and if we pause right here, we can actually go back a few seconds. This mess right here of all 3 red robots is definitely to the Hilltoppers' advantage. This is an absolute mess for the Red Alliance. 2481, the Roboteers are trying to score that square. They're mostly out of the way, but 3242 basically gets caught up in between the rack and 1503, and they themselves, by just being there, are slowing 1503 down in addition to Hilltoppers playing defense. This, again, is another thing that slowed down 1503 from trying to score too. So we'll keep rolling. And at about the 50-second or 51-second mark, it's not shown very well, but 1503 does end up scoring their first logo by scoring the triangle. Meanwhile, Blue is working on their second logo, where K-Botics is scoring that square, and they really only need 1 more tube after they score that to get a full logo ahead. Things are not looking really good right here once K-Botics goes and scores that white circle that's on the ground behind them. So we'll keep going down this match. 1503 gets stuck again by 1732, but Hilltoppers release them. 1503 is confused and then goes and tries to get the triangle that they need. At 39 seconds or so, they've scored that. So now you see the score is 74-51, assuming live scoring is actually accurate. Blue Alliance is ahead by a logo, and Red is behind by 2 tubes. So we'll keep going, and we'll see once again, 3242 is trying to help, but they get tangled up with 1503, but it's not too much of a bother. Pause here for a second, please. This is where things get critical. If we go back to 26 seconds, we'll see that 2041, even though they've only scored 1 tube this match after Autonomous, they're now out of the tube scoring game. They can't score the 1 more tube that is needed right now to complete that second logo. 1503 is finishing that red triangle, but there's 26 seconds left in the match, and 1 more tube needs to be scored. Additionally, right now, Blue's max score, not counting fouls or so, is 99 points. They need, if that's assuming they get first and second place in the mini-bot race. What that means is that Red needs to guarantee the win, Red needs to win the mini-bot race, but they also, to absolutely guarantee the win, because mini-bots were a coin toss that year, that last logo needs to be completed, and there's only 26 seconds left, and really there's only 1 robot that's going to be capable of doing it, and that's 1503, who's currently at the other end of the field.
And Nick, what time did the mini-bots deploy this year?
The mini-bots deployed, I believe the warning bell sounded at 15 seconds, and the mini-bots, you could deploy them starting at 10 seconds left to go in the match, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, and so it looks like Roboteers there is already lined up and deployed their mini-bot launching ramp. Is that right?
Right. Yes. The rules were kind of very specific that year. You could deploy an alignment mechanism before the 15-second or the 10-second warning time where the race started. You just couldn't deploy the mini-bot beyond the plane of the base of the tower, which is that white circle right by the 2481 machine. A lot of people fell victim, I'd say, to this rule, because if you deployed your mini-bots early, your tower was disabled, and it was very difficult with these really, really fast mini-bots to determine whether or not that mini-bot was deployed early. And sometimes some people or some robots would have their tower disabled, and that kind of sucked. But the thing about this strategy that we're talking about here is we knew that the Roboteers were going to go to the tower early because we wanted to make sure that their fast mini-bot would get up the pole in time.
Yeah,
so
I think it's important to recognize because the minibot points were so inflated in this game that it was worth giving up an extra 15, 20, sometimes even 30 seconds to get to that pole early and make sure you're there.
Absolutely. Definitely the diminishing return here on the mini-bots definitely played a huge part in our strategy here. So we're going to keep rolling for a few seconds here, and we're going to stop at, or look at about 19 seconds or so, and we're going to see some confusion here on the Blue Alliance. They're not really sure who's going to deploy that mini-bot. It looks like Hilltoppers in 323, if we rewind just a few seconds here, they're confused about who's going to deploy the mini-bot. Maybe Hilltoppers thought they were going to, but anyways, they kind of drive back and forth because they're not sure what's happening here. Meanwhile, Red is still missing that white tube to cover that Uber tube on the rack. So we'll keep rolling here, and we're going to pause at about 14 seconds once we get to it. You'll see 1503 drives down past the field, and at 14 seconds, wait a minute, the warning bell has sounded. There's 4 seconds left to get it lined up to try to go deploy your minibot and win the race. 1503 hasn't gone to go and line up to the tower. They're going to go get that white circle that is obscured behind the 2481 machine because they need that last white circle game piece in order to complete the logo because the Red Alliance is not confident they're going to win the minibot race. So you'll see here one of my favorite moments that I was ever part of. You're going to see that 1503 goes and grabs this tube, and then they're going to try to deploy a minibot and score this tube after they deployed their minibot. So let's see how it turns out for them. So we'll see they grab the tube successfully. They're lined up quickly. They're actually first up the tower. They somehow beat the 2481 machine. They go down and drive, and unfortunately the video doesn't show it, but 1503 successfully places that white circle at the very end of the match. One thing that's interesting, though, because Red won the minibot race, their score was now 104, barring any penalties, meaning that they had beat Blue's maximum score of 99. They didn't have to go score this white tube, but the thought process behind there was, okay, well, what if maybe the concern with the slam deploy is what if the tower was not triggered by the minibot? It happened so fast you couldn't really tell. What if the robot shaking the tower itself is what triggered the target, which was a thing that happened frequently in 2011, especially in earlier weeks where there would be false triggers and the minibot wouldn't count. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to go deploy that tube anyways. Unfortunately, it doesn't show at the end of the match, but the final score ends up being 119 to 80. You'll notice that Blue only gets one minibot up at the end of the match here. 353 struggles to get that last minibot up. They also only finished the best finish place for that the 2809 robot was third. So again, as I'm saying, it looks like there's all the suspense where that white tube was needed, but in the last few seconds of the match, it turned out because minibots, that white tube was not important. Basically, the point here is that this is a case of sticking to the strategy you'd set out, even if you've only set it out about 20 seconds before it happens. Yeah, I don't really have a good ending close here thought for this match. I just really want to talk about how the split craziness of this game. But it turns out we do have a question from the chat from Azathoth, I think is how you pronounce it. The question is, they ask me about the risk of all four minibots finishing the race and thus ending the match early. Yes, that is an important point that during the 2011 game, that if all four minibots finished the match would end. Meaning that once the race was done, that was it. And that was kind of a risk we were taking, knowing that we might accidentally coast into a robot that's deploying. I don't remember if that was actually something you could be called for after the fact. I think that would end up being, my opinion, would be a no call. But we were taking the risk that we would have the time to deploy that last tube at the end of the match.
I think this is a really interesting match because, a big takeaway for me is one that exceptional performances by robots are hard to defend against. I mean, here you had a robot playing defense the entire time, and they couldn't shut down an epic last play like that. And also that teams should always be going out there and just trying to make magic happen. being able to make this power move that only comes from being very comfortable with your robot and having a well-built robot and a talented drive crew back there. But, they could have just thrown in the towel, and you guys could have not gone after that extra tube there, but you did. Maybe you didn't need it, but you did, and I think that's amazing.
It was definitely a lot of fun to be behind the glass for that particular robot. But I think that's enough of 2011, especially since there's probably people in chat who never even saw the game animation. Mason, I heard you have a more recent match to talk about.
Yeah, I definitely do. I just have to say before we finish that, I love seeing all these robots go up and down, because in my mind, they were all so fast, all the lifts, and so big. And now when I watch this video, it seems so slow. It's been, just ages since we've had a game where the robots are that tall and that big and moving around. It's really interesting to see how much the games have developed in the last 6 or 7 years since that 2011. And what I'm going to be talking about here is the Einstein finals matches. I guess it's 2 seasons ago now, in 2016, it was an amazing high level of gameplay that Stronghold allowed.
Hey, Mason, we might have to have a trigger warning before we show this match.
Oh, well, yeah, okay, maybe. This match, I think what Karthik's going to kind of allude to here is that it was decided on a very close call. In fact, just a penalty separated the rules that year. Was that if there's a tie, the first tiebreaker, or maybe it was beyond the first, I don't remember, but one of the tiebreakers, what ultimately was the tiebreaker in this match, was who had more penalties. So the entire championship was decided on a penalty. And, that's not what I want to talk about. I think that's a bummer. And, I think First recognizes that and try to write the rules a little differently now. It's a shame that happened. But this series was so impressive because it went to 3, and each one of the matches was extremely close. And these teams were neck and neck. In fact, they had the identical scores at the end of the match if you don't count penalties. And still, or I'm sorry, it became even with the penalty, but still they played different strategies. And that's what I think is just so amazing about this. In the first match, the Blue Alliance, which is led by 2056 OP Robotics, they played 2 robots on offense and 1 robot on defense, which before 2016 was, or I guess before, 2014 or so, it was very standard gameplay, just like what Nick was showing, where 2 robots play offense, 1 plays defense, because you usually didn't have a third robot that could play good offense for you, unless you were in like a claw match with a lucky schedule. By the time you got the back half of the Serpentine, just the talent wasn't there. So you employed a robot to play defense very, very often. However, on the Red Alliance, they're playing 3-0. All 3 robots are trying to score on that alliance. We saw a couple different alliances do this throughout the round robin of Einstein that year. And I thought it was really impressive how we were seeing 2 different strategies. And I think it really says a lot about the game that you can play 2 strategies and they basically come out equal at the end of the day. To me, I just love that. I get so excited about it because I'm watching 2 different things happen. It's not just a mirror image of the game, and whoever makes 1 less mistake wins the match.
And Mason, before you move on, I do want to jump on one thing real here. The 1405 robot on this alliance, the Finny Falcons, is probably one of the best examples of how to play man-to-man defense. You're going to see a lot of it in this match, but they made a name for themselves in the Stronghold season, playing some of the best lights-out defense I had ever seen.
Yeah, and what else? I mean, they had they had the extending flap on their robot, so they weren't just playing defense with a wall. They used a 15-6 extension, which would go perpendicular to their wall, so it would literally go over the robot that they were defending to help block shots, which was really, really important. I think there was some cheesecake involved with the 2056 guys there. But also, you have to remember how good of a scorer 1690 was. I think they might have been the most underrated robot of the 2016 season. And when everyone was talking about the top scorers that year, you're talking like 971, 254, but 1690 could score with any of them. And so 2056 snagging them with the first pick allowed them to play the 2+1 strategy of 2 robots on offense and 1 robot on defense. Because there were some matches where 1690, they could come close to they could, at least in the regionals when the tower strength was still set at 8, they could capture on their own. So
yeah, in Karthik, in this match, they actually score 11 balls, and in this game, you had to score championships. You had to score 10 balls to capture the tower. So they did, in fact, do it on their own.
Yeah.
And also on this alliance, this is the 3rd match. I'm sorry, on this lines in this match. This is the third match of the series. So to kind of recap, if I had more time, I'd show them all and fast forward, but I don't. But in the first match, the Blue Alliance has the lead, but then Robot doesn't get up on the batter. And if you don't get on the batter, you don't get your bonus points for bringing that tower down. So all three robots had to contribute beyond the batter. The batter is the slope surface next to the tower. One of the robots doesn't make it on there, so they don't get the bonus points. So they lose that match. So they come out of it and they say, okay, what did we do wrong? Robot didn't get on the batter. Otherwise, our strategy was right. So we're going to play the same strategy. So they go into match 2. The Blue Alliance beats the Red Alliance, playing the exact same strategy. It's more effective this time. So now we're in the third alliance. In the third match. And in this match, the Red Alliance has gotten used to the defense that is being played on them over there. So they do learn how to adjust to it. And I think the defense is also adjusted. In that first match, they were playing exclusively on beach bots. But however, as the time went on, they learned to adapt and they started playing more on 120, who's one of the low shooters. So we're going to get going here. Hit play here in autonomous mode. Nothing too interesting. The Red Alliance, they get one ball in. There's a miss being made by the Roboteers. Over on the Blue Alliance, though, 2 balls get made in. And our defense champion over there, the Finney Falcons 1405, they don't bother to shoot a ball here. Okay, so right out of autonomous, we have this 2056 crosses in autonomous. And within the first 10 seconds here, we have our first kind of bump and run strategy getting employed by the Roboteers. What they're going to do is cross, and they're going to try to get a ball, but they also know that every second is going to matter. And I told you guys already that this ends up being a tie game. So every second they cost or can slow down really helps things. Let's go ahead and stop the clock right here, pause things out. And I want you guys to look over to the Blue Alliance where Orbit, this robot that I said, they made 10 balls in teleop. They made 1 in autonomous. They're about to shoot right now. We're going to hit play, and you're going to watch this ball go in the tower, a direct hit, but they shoot with so much energy, it goes right back out of the tower, out of the other side. That's a no count in this game. So, like I said, every little mistake, is so important. But if you watch them, they pick up another ball, and they fire again right away, just like that, back-to-back shots. So they miss one, and then they make another one. If we can, we're going to pause it, and we're going to go back maybe about 5 seconds to 110 on the clock. And what I want to show is this defense that we're talking about with 1405, the Finney Falcons. They're in your top right corner over there. And by the third match, they realized the best chance they have to slow down this alliance is to try to play defense on the shortest robot. The beach bots, who are in scoring position right now, they like to go up to the tower. So all the Finney Falcons can do there is bump them from behind, misalign, and they do make some effective defensive plays, but they can really attack the Cleveland team, who's sitting in the corner over there. They always shoot from that same spot. They're doing low goals back and forth. So the Blue Alliance recognizes this repeated strategy. They line up in that corner, and they're going to go play D on them. So we can hit play. Sorry about that. And you can see them dogging them. Not only do they force them to miss a shot there, but they also take up a lot of time in the match. And then 1405 right back on defense, trying to slow down the Roboteers. They're back and forth. But I think what happens here is that 3 robot scoring starts to overwhelm this one defensive robot. Let's go ahead and rewatch that last 10 seconds of play there. Or maybe even go back a little bit further. Let's go to 100 on the clock. So this is where 104 looks good to me. So the 1405, they just forced a miss on the Cleveland team, and then they're immediately going to go play defense on Roboteers there. So go ahead and hit play there. It's going to take a couple seconds for this to transpire, but they're really causing Roboteers to shoot from a place they don't want to shoot from. Now Roboteers has gone into the protected zone. It's not their ideal shot. It's a less accuracy shot there, so basically not by blocking the shot, but by making them shoot from a more uncomfortable place, they're going to force that miss there. See if we can hit play here, get our technical difficulties out of the way. So they forced that miss, but it is impressive how right there, pause it again and go back a few seconds there. Right after Roboteers block that shot, they exit out to the middle zone and they go after 2056 again. I think anytime that drivers have that kind of awareness of switching back and forth between offense and defense, they say, I have to go out here to get a ball, but I want to try to dog someone. But really, over on that Blue Alliance, they are just scoring nonstop, Orbit from Israel, they're doing logo runs. They're mostly staying in their zones, and they just continually just keep on scoring balls over and over. If we can stop there, I just miss something that's pretty good here. And this is where I think the impact of trying to play a defensive strategy, we're going to take it back a few more seconds even. Trying to play a defensive strategy against the same alliance 3 times in a row, they start to learn what you're doing and they start to get better. Here, if we watch in that top right corner up there, top right, yeah. Go ahead and hit play there and watch the defensive blue robot there. They're going to try to block a shot on the Red Alliance, and it's going to be ineffective because at this point, the Red Alliance knows that they just have to move fast. They have to get in position right there. Blue shot right over. Blue Alliance can't, the Finny Falcons can't get from place to place. They're just being swarmed by these 3 red robots, and the red robots know that they just have to move fast. They have to get in that zone, go straight to their location, and then take their shots. Right there, we saw Beach Bots had a forced miss by the Finny Falcons.
This is actually becoming harder for me to watch because I think, when I try and coach for defense, and, I've done this a lot over the years with, the third alliance member trying to train them to play defense. One of the things I say is the most important skill in FRC defense is patience. And a lot of the times you see a lot of things happening as a driver and as a drive coach, and you want to try and stop it all. And I see the Finny Falcons. It's like they're trying to shut down 3 robots at once, and that's just not going to happen. So you want to say in real time, hey, pick one robot and just stick with it. But I understand why they don't do that because they place a D on 120. They make 120 miss a shot. Then 120 leaves the zone to go get a ball. And then it feels like in real time, we're just sitting here and we're doing nothing, waiting for them. And it's like that 5 seconds you're waiting for them to come back into the zone feels like an hour. And so naturally you're going to be like, and you see someone else lining up for a shot. So you're like, let's go to them. But that's exactly what the offense wants you to do because it's so hard, especially since you had 3 teams scoring from 3 distinct areas of the field that form a little triangle there. The Finny Falcons can't hit all 3 of them. And so, they were one of the best defensive robots I saw all year long, but I'm sure watching this match, they would have realized, oh, if we had just waited for 120 to come back.
Right, and I think that's really an impressive thing on the Red Alliance is that they really spread out their different shots. Cleveland team always shoots from the same corner. Robotier shooting back from the defenses, and Beachbot's always running up to make the layup shot from the batter. Having those very separated out positions on the field really makes it difficult to play defense on them. And I think what you're saying, Karthik, really does make a lot of sense. I didn't quite think through that, but imagine a scenario where the Finny Falcons just stayed on that back wall where they knew Cleveland likes to go and shoot from, and they just said, hey, we know this is about the only place you can shoot from on the field, and we're going to force you to shoot from somewhere else and just chase that one robot and spend the rest of the time parked there, keeping them out of their desired spot. Cleveland's team made 4 balls that match. If you reduce that down to 2 balls, that's a win. By my count, there's only about 3 balls that they either blocked or forced a miss or knocked out of. They knocked 1 out of Beach Bots. They forced a miss on Robotiers, and they forced a miss on Cleveland's team. So just 3 balls is all they knocked down. Maybe they could have done more just by parking in that one spot.
And this is also an interesting one, I think, when it comes to Einstein, because I was in the same division with 11-14 that 120 was in. And so I saw them play every qualification match, and they like to shoot from the same spot. And so teams like that, you really need to take them out of their element. And I mean, the Finny Falcons did that for part of this match, but they just kind of, it's so hard to sit in one position for the whole match because you see so many things other happening, and they tried to do too much.
Yeah, I really have to agree with that. And it's just difficult whenever you're in the element. And I think, they started the series off by chasing Beach Bots. They said, that's the team. That's their best scorer. We're going to go after them. But then as it turned out that the others, their alliance partners were just as good, so they started spreading out that load. It really made it difficult. I think, to me, that was the big part of this match. I think it's so interesting choosing when to play defense and when to go play 3 offense, when to make that pick. If you're going into a series where you have the option of who do you want to pick, a defensive specialist or somebody who can do defense or offense, or just go 3 offense, that decision comes up time after time. And I think the games, maybe are letting themselves that way, or maybe it's just the level of play is getting better, that we're getting more offensive robots available at championships, at the championship event. So that's really exciting to me. I mean, I know last year we saw 3-0 happening. That was partly because of the challenge, partly because of better robots out there.
Yeah, I think the other thing to keep in mind with this match, as I think about it, is that, like we're saying, oh, well, 1405 should have done this differently, they should have done that differently. If this match plays with the exact same strategies 100 times, like I think 2056's alliance wins like 54 of them, and the other one wins 46. It's so close. Like that one shot, Mason, that you pointed out, with the X-Men blink effect, as I call it, where it goes in one hole and comes out the other hole. If that shot goes in, then we're not talking about this match in the same way. We're talking about how 2056 won, and we're looking for what did the Beach Bots do incorrectly, and that's how close this match was. So,
and I remember that. That's why I love this match. I was at championship and I was watching, and I was on my feet just screaming because it was so exciting to see two competitively matched alliances going up against each other. 3 matches in a row and being so close every single time. And by 2016, the real-time scoring was pretty fast, so you could just watch the score go up and down. You had to do a little mental math, like in a situation where it's paused here, to know that they hadn't quite made all their defense crossings yet, so that makes up the score difference there. But really, it was just neck and neck all match long. So we're gonna power through the rest of this. That's really the most exciting part. But I want you guys to focus on the Red Alliance here at the end of the match. Starting at about 35 seconds, they really just go on a scoring frenzy here. Both Beachbots and Robotiers scoring up to the last. They know they have to get every ball. It's the final match of the season. They got to leave it all in the field. So they really just go crazy, scoring ball after ball. I think Robotier scores 3 in the last 40 seconds. Beachbots, starting at 35 seconds, they score 3, and Beachbots makes an interesting decision. We'll get there in a little bit here, but they at about 6 or 7 seconds left. Actually, I'm going to back up a little bit more than that. It's about 15 seconds left. They have to make the decision of to go chase another ball down or go try to hang. And I think it's really interesting that they go after another ball. Now, Beachbots has this really cool end game where they do the hang and they also are able to fire a ball. Just watch all this action on the Red Alliance here. And maybe that Beachbot hang wasn't as reliable because they'd fallen over and picked themselves up many times in this series. But right there, they've got the ball. I think if they would have skipped that ball, they would have been able to go for a hang, which is net more points there, afford themselves an extra couple seconds there. As it turns out, they spent a lot of time lining up for that hang and they don't get it. So grabbing the ball and shooting it and getting the 5 points for the ball ended up being a lot better choice there. I don't know that I would have made the same one, though, being a coach behind the glass. Go ahead and play out these final few seconds here of the match.
So that last ball right there is that 330 scores is super important. That last second score is what ties up the tower score.
Yeah, it's just crazy. It was so close. So, it really was just an exciting series, and it's so great. The last few years that we've had these really high-profile matches with all these great teams performing at a solid level. They're not broken robots living across finish lines. They're playing competitively, scoring lots of points. It just was so exciting there.
So I think there's really only one thing that I want to chat about this match, and it's probably with in the first 20 seconds of teleop. We see that 2056 is hanging there, and Tyler's drawing a face for us. But in that first the first 20 seconds of teleop, Tyler, if we could go back, I want to go and catch the penalty that actually decides this match. It's with maybe not 20 seconds left in the match, but the first 20 seconds of teleop, Tyler, if we can go back much further. I'm sorry to drag us back so far. But we'll see right here. Right here is good. That's auto. We'll play from here. I can talk through it. So we're playing here. Yep. So we've got a minute. We got teleop starting here. And we'll see that 120 is going to go cross back into the neutral zone after they fire their ball. They're going to go get a ball while 1405 is heading into their opponent's courtyard to go play defense on 120. So we pause right here for a second. Okay, so 120 is probably, it's hard to tell from this view, they're probably like 6 inches away from that guardrail. And 1405 is basically waiting for 120 to come line up for their shot in the corner like they had planned. So we'll go ahead and we'll roll the tape. And this is kind of fast. You'll have to watch the interaction between 1405 and 120. We may have to go back a little bit further to see it. In fact, if we can go back to, say, with 125, 130 on the clock, so we can get the video to render, you're going to see 1405 just taps 120 against the guardrail and never leaves them. In FRC, there's the 6-foot rule when it comes to pinning. We're going to see it happen right about here. They pin him for a second, but they never leave
The count
6 feet away.
Count started at 115.
Right, and you'll see that the ref in the bottom right corner was counting a pin on them, hesitates a little bit because they don't want to be the person to call a foul on Einstein, and then you'll see they call the 5-point foul. You'll see their arm go up. Go ahead, Karthik.
Tyler, go back to 115. So the key is, and I mean, this is where the match was decided, and I think Kate made the right call, but this is how close it was. So started from here, and then watch how the maximum distance that 1405 gets away from 120 as they back off. And was that 6 feet? I don't know.
And certainly I don't think that the ref in that corner has the best vantage point to say yes or no it's 6 feet. From my vantage point, it looks pretty close. And we have a higher view than that ref does. And
so, but like, I mean, I've been the person for years saying that refs are too easy on pinning and they're afraid to make pinning calls. So kudos to the referee in that corner for making that call. Because I think a lot of times teams don't back off enough. They just back off a little bit and refs just wipe the call.
Absolutely.
And that is such a hard call to make because you're still having to keep a count while you're deciding whether to wipe the call. And you can see that there was the hesitation as she got ready to wipe the call.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure after the match, there's 2 refs on the other side of the field who were probably looking in that direction. I'm sure they got together and talked about it.
Yeah, you can see one of them is actually pointing to that spot on the carpet and talking with another ref behind him. Looks like Aiden is actually standing right behind that ref there. Aiden Brown, the chief head referee in FRC. So they're definitely talking about it too. So
I know in real time, I was literally standing like maybe 5 feet behind Kate from where she made that call. And I remember thinking, oh, that's not a penalty. And I was like, kind of like my eyes kind of bugged out. But then I started focusing on the rest of the match because there was a lot more to happen.
Right.
But it's one of those things. It's a judgment call. It was really close. I'm pretty sure it was a right call, but maybe it wasn't. I know that a lot of people will still debate that. But that's how close this match was. Like a ball going X-Men blink effect in the goal, out the goal. Balls being rolled over the ramparts being in position 2 for that match. All the littlest things. And when you have a match that ends up as a tie and then decided on a tiebreaker, anything could make the difference.
Yeah, absolutely.
So super exciting match there. Amazing performance. Both alliances scoring 18 balls. On the blue alliance being done by 2 robots. On the red alliance being done by 3 robots. But Karthik, I hear you've got a match where maybe not so many balls get scored.
So we've talked, this match between 1690, 2056, 1405, 120, 2481, 330 is arguably one of the greatest matches in FIRST history. And I think there could be a lot of debate over, what the greatest match in history was. I want to talk about what I think was arguably the worst match in FIRST history. And
Wow.
This match was awful. And so I think I have to go back. We're going way back, folks. We're going back to 2008 to the Waterloo Regional. And so a lot of people talk about the Waterloo Regional now. It's like, oh, Waterloo's the most competitive event every year, the best teams. Oh, Waterloo's the event I want to watch. Waterloo's great. There was a time when Waterloo was the worst event in the world. I can't even explain how painful this event used to be. And so it reminds me of a quote by Boris Yeltsin. So once after the fall of the Soviet Union, in the early 90s, Boris Yeltsin was asked about the state of the Russian economy. He said, the reporter says, Mr. Yeltsin, in one word, describe the state of the Russian economy. And Boris Yeltsin says, good. The reporter's like, oh, in 2 words, describe the state of the Russian economy. Not good. And that kind of sums up the Waterloo Regional, because there were like 2 good teams, and then everything else was just terrible. So I pulled up 1114's scouting database from 2008. And like there were only, as I'm counting right here, so 6 teams at the event that could accomplish the main game objective more than once a match. So the game objective that year was to hurdle a giant ball over this overpass. Only 6 teams could do that on average once a match. Well, then you're like, oh, well, there was a secondary objective, because there was in that game, where you could drive laps around the field. You got 8 points for a hurdle and 2 points for just driving in a circle around the field. How many teams could do that 4 times a match to equal 1 hurdle? Oh, just another 3 teams, not including any of the teams that we mentioned already. So, like, this event was bad. This event was so bad, there was this one team who would drive in autonomous mode. They'd get, 8 points for driving across 2 lines in autonomous mode, just drive straight, and then they'd hit the e-stop. They wouldn't move in teleop. And I remember, like, before the 11-14 pick list meeting that night, one of the kids came to me. It's like, oh, we got to blacklist 1334 because they don't move after auto. I'm like, yeah, they didn't move after auto. Yeah, And then when we looked at the stats for points per match, they were ranked 13th. The team who e-stopped intentionally after auto was ranked 13th because that year there were all sorts of penalties. So the field was divided. There was 4 lines on the field. And if you always had to be going in a counterclockwise motion and making laps. But if you ever went backwards, and going backwards was defined as crossing a line that you had already crossed in the opposite direction, it was a 10-point penalty. So this one team decided, hey, let's just get a couple points in auto and then hit the e-stop and we won't get any penalties. And they were like one of the top teams at the regional. Like, it was bad. And so.
No, that's being strategic. That's being smart.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's scary that you could be one of the top teams by saying, hey, we're not going to move. We're just going to do our auto and we're going to park. So that brings us to qualifying match number 17. And so when I talk about this regional being bad, it's like you'd go through the first morning of the event and you'd be lucky to get 4 teams or out to a match. Forget about 6 teams. Like, I remember there would always be this huge round of applause once you get to around like match 25, I swear, was when you would finally have 6 teams on the field. Because like teams are still working on in the pits. Like Ontario now is like one of the top regions in FRC, and there's so many good teams. But Ontario in 2008 was like a wasteland.
True.
Like Nick, you were there. Like it was.
Oh man, it's night and day now. Ontario 2008 to now is totally different. Back then, you were lucky if you moved.
I mean, in the words of the Six God, and it's fitting that Drake is from Ontario and from Toronto, but we really did start from the bottom, and now we're here. And it was the bottom, and so. But people wanted to watch these events because, I mean, at the same time, like 11-14 had the best robot in the world that year. So you wanted to watch this robot. And it was just like this crazy dichotomy that 11-14's average auto points was more than the average points of any other team at the regional for the total match other than 2056. It was like just 2 completely different planes. And so that brings us to this match, which starts off as a 1 versus 1 match, meaning there's only 2 robots on the field. So this is going to be a good one. And so this match, the other thing about the Waterloo Regional back then is I was the MC and Paul Copioli was the game announcer. And this is when Paul Copioli really proved that he's the best game announcer in first, because he had to make these matches entertaining. And he also had to hide his disdain for how terrible the teams were. And so we're going to leave the audio on during this match so you can hear yes, the hat. You can hear Paul reacting to this match. So just to explain, I watched half of this match in person. The other half of the match, I had to hide under the scorer's table because I was laughing so hard and actually started crying at how bad this match was. So 1 versus 1, 10:06 on the red side, 15:35 on the blue side. And let me just set up the game again. The important things to remember are you got 8 points for hurdling. Actually, that's not important to remember in this match because no one gets 8 points. You get 2 points for every time you complete a lap around the field. But here's the big one. Those balls that start up on top of that overpass, any ball that ends on top of the overpass is worth 12 points. So this match actually starts out at 24-24. And the idea was that teams would knock those balls down, so they could do something with them. Except most teams at the Waterloo Regional couldn't do anything with the balls, so it makes sense to leave them up there. Hey, it's a 24-24 point match. We talked about the other strategy. If you went backwards over one of these lines, that means cross it completely and then break the plane of it on the way back, it's a 10-point penalty. So you have to be very, very careful. I mean, 11-14's second pick at this regional that we won the regional with, they were taking 20 points in penalties in a lot of the matches. So, like, you know, we had to deal with that negative 20. And so I remember at this match, Paul set up a stupid rule that every time someone took a G22 penalty, I had to do 5 push-ups. And, like,
oh no,
dude, I
no.
was jacked after this event by, like, Karthik standards. Like, I needed to, like, get, like, new tailored shirts because, like, I was bigger after this. It was such a ridiculous zoo. And, like, dude was standing on my back. Oh, it was miserable. This was before he was my boss, so he was allowed to abuse me. So let's get this match started, and please enjoy Paul's commentary.
So I just want to say real quick, the audio might be just a tad bit quiet, so we apologize about that, just in case the hosts jump in.
So the match starts off. Hey, look, 10:06, not moving in auto. Oh no!
Oh no!
And yeah.
1535 falls over in autonomous mode. So right there, that is a 10-point penalty. Stop the match right now. So it is 24-14 for the Red Alliance. The Blue Alliance is done. They cannot do anything else. So they can't lose any more points. Well, they can if their blue ball gets knocked over. But they've got 14 points right now. Reds got this unless they do something dumb. And so let the match begin. 24-14 for Red.
And this is teleop, right? Like, they have control of their robot.
Teleop is starting right now. And here we go. And you see 10:06. They move. They go. They cross a line, and they don't take a penalty. That's good. And they cross another one. No penalty. Hey, we're doing okay. Just driving around the field. They stop for a second. They're trying to knock their ball off. Stop. So they tried to knock their ball off, and that's interesting because if they knocked their ball off, their score would drop from 24-12, which isn't something you necessarily want to happen because I'm sure they were thinking, oh, we can knock that ball off, and then maybe we could go hurdle it. Let me check my stats to see how many times 10:06 hurdled at that regional. Oh, 0. So it may not have been the best strategic decision to knock that ball, but hey, let's see what happens. So the match continues. 10:06 driving. They're so twitchy as they drive that they're very close. Ooh, they almost took stop. They almost took a 10-point penalty as they came over that line. Like,
what kind of drivetrain do they have in there? Is that a crab?
It looks like a swerve-ish, I think.
I think it was Mecanum, maybe, or just a
pretty
lot of
quick
Omni
Mecanum.
wheels.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure what. Actually, wait, I have the scouting database. Hold on. Pit scouting, 10:06. 4 Omni to 45 degrees, holonomic, and the comment from the 1114 scout is it shakes the arena.
Well, that's a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Sorry, I'm just looking through the 11. I'm going to digress for a second to read what some of our scouts had this year. For one team, they labeled them as poop. Wait, that was 1114 they labeled as poop, okay? There was another one they labeled as weird poo forklift. Another one as fake tennis rackets. Another one as, in all capital letters, bad.
Oh my gosh.
Another
Scouts
one.
are savage.
This stuff is like super confidential. We're not meant to share it, but I figure after 9 years, the statute of limitations is like expired on this nonsense.
Yep.
Drives into wall, massive gross arm. One team got a -6 for their drivetrain. Weird tennis balls. Okay,
Oh my goodness.
I'm going back to the match here. All right. So the match continues. Remember, it is 24-14. And 10:06, this is the penalty that they almost took. Oh. And now they cross they've done one full lap. They got 2 points, and they almost took a penalty again. They have this match under control. They're just going to keep driving and almost taking penalties on all of them. Unfortunately, we can't really truly hear Paul's audio, so we'll play it afterwards. Maybe we can see if we can get it. 10:06 going around again, and okay, the audience can hear it, so good. Unfortunately, I can't hear it, so I can't commentate on what Paul's saying, but I do remember it being a doozy. And they're just going here. They've gotten 2 laps, and they kind of have this. And now the camera zooms in, unfortunately, on the fallen over robot for some reason.
Gotta love those first cameramen.
Oh, the ball! They took the ball off. Oh, why? All right, you got to pause it right now. So, because the cameraman was zooming in on the robot that fell over a minute ago, just to check to see if it had gotten up, we missed the knocked a red ball off. So they just lost 12 points. They'd scored 4, so they were up to 28, and they're down to 16 now. It's 16-14. Like, they are in just one penalty, or if they knock over another ball. The good thing is, and this was the quote that was endearing after this match, was the good thing for 10:06 was they were so terrible that they couldn't actually lose the match, because if they were any better, they would have found a way to knock over another ball, but they just weren't capable of doing it. So this match just continues, and you really have to enjoy Paul's commentary because he just gets more and more exasperated. But, as a first MC/game announcer, you're taught to only say positive things and not be negative. So he's just trying in the nicest way to indicate, hey, maybe this isn't the smartest course of action for 10:06. So let's keep going. And, we see the fallen over robot again. We see the drive team just standing there staring. Lotus and, the people who were there just to get credit for this match because, you want to be part of history. And now they're going to try and do something with that ball. Oh, they have hockey sticks on the robot. That was their thing. That very Canadian. It was cool when the robots were good. By the way, 10:06 at this point was considered a top 10 Canadian team. It was this world we're in. Yeah, they're trying to move that ball around, and they're hitting the dead robot. Why not? And I mean, 10:06 is from just outside Toronto, so they were very much like the 2008 Toronto Maple Leafs, where they shot and just never scored. And this just, I don't know what they're doing. And I mean, the match is going to finish up here. And, they're going backwards. That's dangerous. That could have been the 10-point penalty. And the match is over, and they do win. They were so close to losing it. The final score on that match, I believe, was 20-14. So if they had taken one penalty there, they would have lost that match. What's scary is, in this match of 6 teams, which turned into a 1 versus 0, 4 of these teams made the elimination rounds. 10:06 made the elimination rounds, and 15:35, the robot who spun around and fell over, was a finalist. They got a silver medal. If we were in a district system, they would have gone to district champs. I mean, it's easy to joke about this, but let's talk about the serious portion of this match. There's 2 types of teams in FRC, and I'm serious. There are teams that treat FRC matches like a competition, and there's teams that treat it like a science fair. And I'm not saying which is right or which is wrong. But the teams who treat it like a science fair don't actually care if they win or lose. They care about just trying to see if their robot can do what it was designed to do. And 10:06's robot, they wanted it to hurdle somehow, so they were willing to risk losing that match. And we've seen teams do that before, but sometimes it is painful. But I mean, this match had a lot of history behind it, so I'd say this match is like a first version of a snuff film, in that it's been traded around in back rooms for a long time, where no one really likes to talk about this match publicly. But if you're at a pick list meeting that's going really late, someone will be like, hey, put on the Waterloo 2008 qualifying match 17, and people know what you're talking about. Jarrett brought it up on Chief, because and Paul makes this match that's what a game announcer can do. He's just really, really sells it, and you can hear people in the background laughing. That's other people at the scorers table watching this happen, because everyone was just kind of aghast. And I mean, 2008 season was filled with so many amazing matches and cool things happening. And I mean, I won a world championship that year. But if you ask me what my favorite match from 2008 is, it's this match right here, because this match just was everything about the Waterloo Regional in 2008. And I mean, I had to live through this match, and now all of you did too. I mean, yeah, let's watch it one more time so everyone can hear Paul's audio. All right, we're going to watch this one more time, and I will be silent, and everyone can listen to this audio.
Wait, before we do this, can we get the giveaway going so we have something the audience can also do while they're listening to this? Would that be all right there,
Mason,
Tyler?
that's a great idea. Let's do that. So, all right, yeah. Let me get that set up real quick here because I got to do a couple transitions for that. One moment, please.
Yeah, and remember, this is a giveaway. We're giving away a team 323 Lights Out. That's the new team from Mountain Home, Arkansas. Don't forget to either follow or subscribe to be eligible, and be in the chat ready to spam the keyword. Tyler's prepping up that magical keyword right now.
It's out. Let's do it. So it's going to be Lights Out. Very creative, but it works quite well. Hey, do want to give a big thanks, by the way, to 323, because they donated the shirt. And teams, if you are interested in doing shirt donations as well, you're welcome to do so for the show. We'd love to have that. And 323 is also doing a fundraiser on their shirt page, too. So make sure you check this out. If you're interested, if you don't win one, you have an opportunity to at least purchase one and get 323 some funds to keep on going.
All right, so let's do the giveaway and watch this and listen this time to Paul's excellent commentary.
G22, baby! This is a 1v0 match. 1v0. This is like qualifying points galore. Oh, brother. Here goes Fast Eddie. If you get a G22, we're making their operators do push-ups. Nice and slow. Go, Fast Eddie. Go, 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 go. Oh, so close to G22, Eddie. Way too close. Oh, again, so close to G22. They're giving me a heart attack. There you go. Eddie, Eddie. Eddie, 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 Eddie. Come on. Oh, so close. You're scaring me, Eddie. There we go. Nice and smooth around the corner. Just like practice. Woo! And they knocked down their own ball. Why not? This is going to be an interesting turn of events. 50 seconds left. They knocked down their own ball. Why? I don't know. But they did it anyway. 45 seconds left. Wow. I'm at a loss for words right now. 30 seconds left. That's interesting. Well, 30 seconds left. Yeah, maybe they should knock down the blue ball. But hey, 20 seconds left. Let's go, Eddie. Here we go. They de-scored themselves with 15 seconds left. Wow. I don't know what to say. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Okay, so we watched that match. I just was looking at stats, and the craziest thing is Fast Eddie was part of, what we call the worst match in FRC history, but they were also part of the highest scoring match of that season at this same event. 10:06, 2200 and 11:14 put up 168 points in a match. And so, I mean, that just says everything about everything. Boris Yeltsin, one word, good. 2 words, not good.
That's great. So Tyler, can you tell us who's the winner of that competition?
Let's do a drawing for that, and the winner is going to be Indy Sam winning subscriber. By the way, Indy Sam, thank you once again, buddy. We'll get you that shirt out. So just shoot me your contact information, or I'm assuming you know Meredith, so you can reach out to her and shoot her your contact information as well. Congratulations. And thanks for being a subscriber. Everybody who's eligible, if you follow or subscribe, you do get a better chance if you subscribe, because we appreciate you supporting First Updates now.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tyler. So with that, we're going to wrap up our second episode of FUNalysis. We learned a lot about how defense can be played on a zone and not be effective. And we learned a lot about how defense can be played on three robots trying to score and not be effective. We learned how playing defense on yourself can sometimes be not effective as well. So a lot of fun. Let us know what you thought of the show. Join us on our Discord channel. Join us on Facebook. Join us on Chief Delphi. We really want to make this content that you guys are going to enjoy. So please reach out, let us know. This is all warm up, getting ready for the big show, which is going to be the main season coming up, the 2018 game Power Up, where we hopefully will get some real-time strategy, advice, and commentary as we get to the season. So on behalf of myself, Karthik, and Nick, and our producer, Tyler, I would like to say thank you for tuning in, and thank you all for being a part of the chat and being a big part of this experience. We'll see you next time on Fun, and we'll talk to you then.
Have a
Good night, everybody.